Yo,
What's up, man?
what's
How
up,
you
man?
doing? Good to see you, bro.
Good to see you. Thanks for coming on over.
Oh, man, looking forward to it.
Today's guest is the one and only Mitchell Chamale. Mitchell runs Combat Night, which is a pro and amateur MMA organization that runs up and down the East Coast. Mitchell is also the co-founder of the Saman Foundation, which helps amateur MMA fighters. Not to mention that he himself has a wealth of knowledge in the martial arts industry and is just a homie.
So, what are you drinking?
If you got some Golden Monkey.
Today's drink of choice is Golden Monkey Beer, which is manufactured by Victory Brewing Company, who over the last 28 years has grown into a world-renowned craft brewery and second largest craft brand family in Pennsylvania. Golden Monkey Beer is a pilsner that is loaded with Belgian yeast character of banana and clove with equally fruity body balanced with a light, earthy hop character. Savor notes of orange and spice followed by a dry finish. And with a 9.5 alcohol by volume, we are sure to get nice and tipsy.
So I went out and got you some. There's one for you, and there's one for me.
I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Well, this shit's actually pretty good, though.
It is, and there's an interesting story why I like it.
Okay, what is it?
So, I'm not a big beer drinker,
Okay.
but I like Belgian style beers. Like they're a little lighter, they're not that heavy, but a lot of times they're not the highest content of alcohol.
Yeah.
And this one is like 2 Bud Lights, right? It's like double.
It's strong. It's like
strong.
9.5.
But
and
it's
you
not.
can taste. It tastes strong.
It
tastes strong.
But it's not like an IPA where it's like overpowering, you know,
Yeah.
where it's like the flowery smell, like taste.
Yeah.
So when I'd go out with my friends, and I'm not a heavy drinker, I drink a beer or two, and it's like, man, I might get a little buzz. But you drink 2 of these, you're gonna have a buzz.
Well, I have a feeling I'll probably have a buzz after this one because I haven't really eaten anything today, so I'm gonna be feeling right.
Same here. I'm 150 pounds soaking wet. I haven't eaten anything today. I've been on the road, and then I'm drinking basically 2 Bud Lights.
Oh man, it doesn't look like a monkey on the damn thing though.
You know, I never noticed.
I had no clue what it was because I was looking for like something at the store. I was looking for like a golden monkey, thinking like a Buddha type thing, but it's like this weird alien like thing. But I mean, I'm not sure where the hands are. It's like a monkey orgy going on in there. There are hands and elbows everywhere.
It has the tail, but you know what? I'm just noticing. I've never looked at the logo until you just pointed out. It's hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. That's why it has so many hands. It's covering its eyes, it's covering its ear, and it's covering its mouth.
I got you. It's got like this weird claw-like thing on the bottom, though. Like you see it?
Yeah, it's
like the little weird fucked up hand.
Yeah, the strong hand.
It's a special hand.
Yeah. I just recently was telling someone this. They were talking about like there was a picture of me sleeping in a. They were like, "Yo," it was like, "How do you sleep before you about to fucking go fight?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, I wasn't sleeping. I was pretending."
Yeah.
Like. And I do have some friends. My buddy Jim Allers, he'll go to sleep up until like 30 minutes before he's gonna fight.
It's weird. Some people can do that. Like I can't. My nerves are just bad.
No,
I have bad nerves.
I pretend because I don't want no one to talk to me. I don't want no one to be like, "Hey man, are you ready?" And it's like, no. I hope I'm ready.
Yeah.
So I just go, and a lot of times before my fights, I'll lay down, and there's pictures of me. There's multiple pictures of me laying down, and it's like, you're sleeping before your fight. That's crazy. And I'm like, yeah, I'm really not. I'm laying there with my eyes shut, hearing everything that's being talked about and thinking about, yeah, you're about to get in the cage. You're about to get in the cage. And even up to my last fight, same man. The nerves get me every time. Like, in fact, if it wasn't for the nerves, I might not still be fighting now because I'm 39. I'm old, but I would have fought till I was probably 36. But I stopped. You know, I had some random fights here and there randomly, but the nerves always got to me. I mean, like I love training. I love actually fighting, but everything up to, for me, it's whenever the ref would say, "You got your mouthpiece, you got your cup." That's when the nerves went away. So for me, I think my favorite fight story is actually recently, and it wasn't even like, it was kind of when I passed my prime. I had simple goals when I started fighting. I wanted to fight on a televised card. I wanted to have a winning record. I was really doing it to test my jiu-jitsu. I started jiu-jitsu and judo in college, and I loved it. And I was like, man, I want to find out if this is good, if this is real. Like, can I really use this in a fight? So that's why I did my first MMA fight. So once I figured that out, I was 7-2. I was happy. I was kind of riding off into the sunset. But one of my goals I hadn't met was I wanted to fight out of the country. That was like my final goal that I hadn't met. I never wanted to go to the UFC. I fought for Bellator, and I was in Singapore during the pandemic, cornering my buddy Troy Worthen for one championship. And at the weigh-ins, prior to weigh-ins, John Lineker's opponent's having issues with his COVID test. He felt the COVID test. Singapore's like, nah.
So when was this?
This was about 2 years ago. So I was like 37, 36.
Yeah, so like you're in COVID at this point.
We're in COVID. Yeah, this is like, in Singapore especially. Like in Florida, we were kind of like, hey, you know. Yeah. But in Singapore, they were still locked down. I documented the whole process because like in the airport, insane. You would think it was zombie land. Like it was just dead. I got like 10 COVID tests in a matter of a week. I had to get COVID tests to get on the plane, COVID tests when I landed, COVID tests at the airport, all these COVID tests. And this one, they were still shoving it up your nose and like filling your brain out. So they come to Troy in the hotel room and they're like, hey, Troy, this is the day before weigh-in. So like, hey, we need you to, would you like to fight John Lineker? His opponent's out. He's the main event. We're down to like, we started this card with 7 fights. Now we're down to 4 fights. Like we need you to step up.
Yeah, for a promoter, that's real rough.
Yeah. And Troy's like, all right, let's talk money, you know, blah, blah. They're going back and forth. And, I was like, man, Troy, I don't know. I was like, I'll fight John Lineker. I was like, I don't care. Like, I would do that shit. You know, I'm kind of like put my name out there. Like, you, like, what's your name? And I was like, Mitchell Chamale. Like, you know, I'm 7-2 as a pro fighter. But I tell him all my information. I'm like, oh, okay. And Troy's like, I ain't letting you fight John Lineker. Troy's like, nah, that's not happening. Like, no. And going about the business, they go and do the night of, they go and do the face-offs. You know, one championship's very theatrical. And they pre-film where they face off in front of each other before weigh-in. So they go do that. He faces off with his opponent who was Shuya Kimikova. And so we think he's fighting Shuya, you know. Weigh-ins, they come and they're doing all that. I'm a pretty big fan of the way one handles their weigh-ins. They make everyone do a brain test. So you have and every time you fight, you take the brain test again. And they kind of compare your scores to make sure they're not going down too much. And that you're not losing any cognitive function. So the whole test, they're going through all that stuff, the hydration test, you know, and they come to Troy and they're like, hey, you still want to fight John Lineker? Like, would you do that? Like, we'll agree to the money you wanted. Like, this is what we'll pay, you know, blah, blah, blah. Like, you down to fight John Lineker? And Troy's like, yeah, fuck it. I'm down. Like, well, let's do this, you know? Okay. And they literally turn and look at me and go, you want to fight Shuya? Troy's old opponent. Yeah. They wanted to keep that fight. You know, they wanted to keep as many fights as possible because they had already lost fights. And I'm literally eating a bowl of street noodles and chicken. The whole time I've been there, Troy is cutting weight. And he's been ordering me the different Singapore street food that he loves. Because we can't leave the hotel. We're like on strict lockdown. Like they literally have us locked in our rooms with a hall monitor, keeping us from leaving the room. We didn't leave the hotel for a whole 10 days. And I was like, I'm literally eating noodles. And I'm like, fuck yeah. I was like, yeah, I'll fight him. And they were like, what do you weigh? And I was like, I'm 143 probably, 145, soaking wet. And they're like, get on the scale real quick. So I go get on the scale with my noodles. And I look and they're like, all right, finish the noodles and come back and weigh in. I was like, all right, cool. So I finished my noodles. I go weigh in and I took the fight, you know, on it's probably less than 24 hours notice from the time we fought. I got sent to the hotel we were at was actually in a hospital as well. It was really weird. It's a hospital connected to the hotel. Okay. So they take me to the hospital.
That's handy for a fight.
I know. They take me to the hospital. I get an eye exam. I get CT scans. I get all the medicals done. I'm in the hospital till 10 p.m. at night, getting all my shit done. I also documented all of that. Everything. I wasn't supposed to, but I was like, no, I'm recording all this shit. So you know, and what's funny is, and there's a lot of people that will attest to this. People used to always ask me, when are you going to fight again? When are you going to fight again? Because I run combat night and I train. I train consistently. While I was in Singapore, though, I was eating all the street food, and I had an event back in Florida, and they're 12 hours different time. So I was getting like an hour or 2 hours worth of sleep a night because I'm staying up at night working and talking to people and doing my social media posts. So I was pretty ragged. But, I mean, I had been telling people for probably 2 or 3 years already that one day I'll be somewhere with my cup and my mouthpiece, and I'll be able to step up, and that's when I'll fight again. I always said that, I don't know. It's one of those few times where you feel like you really spoke something into existence. So I fought Shuya Kimikova on short notice. It's the only time I've ever been finished in a fight. That little fucker is very smart, strong, technical.
What was the rule set?
It was one championship, knees to the head.
Was it Muay Thai?
MMA.
MMA. Okay.
Yeah, he was undefeated. He was ranked, I think, 3rd in the world for one championship at the time. It was fun, man. The first round was great. I feel like they did really well. I defended some good takedowns against the cage. I tried to hit him with a buggy choke. At one point, I thought he was out. Like I had a buggy choke completely in, and I was like, he's out. Like he quit moving. He just like stopped moving. I was like, oh, he's out. And as soon as I started saying that, it kneed me right in the side of the head. It was like, I ain't out. Boom, threw a knee. Second round, I'm sitting on the stool. Some random guy from Australia. Literally, he was Martin Day's corner man. I can't even think of his name right now. Awesome individual. He cornered me because they had to shuttle us in and out for the fights. So I was in the building. I was one of the only people in the building. There might have been outside of the production team when Mighty Mouse got knocked out with that knee. I got to see it live. I was one of probably 15 people in the building when Mighty Mouse got knocked out. I was one of maybe 20 people when John Wayne Parr fought Nikki Holtzkin. Like I got to watch all that stuff live. It was crazy, incredible experience. I don't know that I'll ever. I don't know for martial arts and for fighting. I don't think I'll ever be able to top that because I am a true proponent of, real fighters fight. That's just it. You know what I mean? Like if you're a real fighter, you fight. If it's a short notice fight, you don't have to necessarily take it. But if you're ready and you're prepared, take it. Like go take it. Like jump off that cliff, have fun.
There's a feeling, at least for me anyway, that you get the moment the bell rings. For me, it's the bell.
Same.
And it's like a euphoric experience. It's like the adrenaline gets me well before that for sure, which I need to fucking work on, but I've never been able to fix that shit. Yeah. But the walkout, like the day before, I'm in my head. The morning of, I'm definitely in my head. I take like 50 shits that day. Like I can't help it. And then I get back into the room. And back in the day, I just wrap my own hands.
Yep.
And then you walk out and then they check you. And then you're like, oh, this is real. Yep. But it's fucking cool. As soon as you walk out and you see like a crowd and everybody is there, and win, lose, or draw, you're the reason they're there.
Yeah, you're
at that moment. Because they could just walk out the room. If you suck, they could just go to the bar, right? But they stay and they want to watch. Then you wind up getting into the ring and you see them for the first time. Whether they walked out first or whether they're walking up, doesn't matter. You see them for the first time and you can tell what they are. Yeah. It's weird. It's fucking weird. You can feel what kind of person they are in that moment. You're like, oh, I'm gonna fucking wreck you.
Yeah.
Or like, it's one or the other.
Yeah. And
then you touch gloves and you have a moment, just a small moment together where you're just standing there awkwardly, like, I don't know what we should say to each other right now. Like it's a weird, like I got invited to a party and I don't know anyone, so I'm gonna come talk to you, I guess.
Yeah.
And then you go back to the corner. Ref is in the middle. Hand goes down or his hands clap together, whatever the ref style is, and that bell rings, and then it's euphoria.
Yeah.
It is like a pure dump of dopamine in your fucking brain that anyone who's never fought before will never understand what that feels like.
Yo, I've ridden street bikes. I have ridden the fastest roller coaster in the world out in Dubai or Abu Dhabi. I have done so many crazy things in my lifetime, and none of it comes close to the feeling of fighting. Like you just can't replicate it. And what's interesting about the one championship fight is I was on cloud 9 from the time he asked me. I had no fear. I had no anxiety. No one knew I was fighting, right? I'm in fucking Singapore. No one knows I'm fighting. I'm just I didn't have a camp. I didn't have no build up. There was no stress. There was no anxiety. For me, out of my 11 fights, that was my favorite one. I lost. The only time I've ever been finished in a fight. I loved every second of it.
There's a difference when you don't get a real training.
Yeah, but I still felt here.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, I was smiling the whole time.
Well, because there's no stress. Yeah. Like first of all, you don't put any pressure on yourself because you know what it is.
Yeah.
Like whatever it is, it's literally throwing caution to the wind. So fighting at the fight nights, which I want to talk to you about this after we're all done, but fighting at the fight nights, I had an opportunity to fight multiple times a night if I wanted, every Friday night. You just, hey, you want to fight? Yeah. Hey, we got a guy in the back about your size. You want to fight him?
That'd be a good feeling.
Like, yeah, fuck it. I'll fight that guy too. Like, you just keep going through the list. And it's weird because I always felt like when I showed up on that Friday night, I could say no. If I didn't feel like it, I just didn't have to. Excuse me. I'm starting to feel that shit.
Yeah, I mean, and like 9.5% alcohol per volume or whatever, like that's literally like one of these is 2 beers.
Yeah, for sure. And I hadn't eaten all fucking day.
I've only had half of it. I'm already feeling a little.
I got a little cheese in me, but that was
Yeah.
it. I fed half that to dogs. But yeah, like I want to fight again like that, where it's just like a casual show up. What's the worst thing that could happen type of feeling.
Yeah.
And I want to fight Joshua Fabia so fucking bad. Like Karate Combat shared that shit. I was like, yo, I called him out. I sent him a DM. I was like, hey, I saw him extort Diego Sanchez. I saw what he did to the community in general. And I was like, I'll fucking fight that guy. Yeah. We'll meet in a catch weight. Like he's, I don't know how much he weighs.
Like 160,
160, 165.
Yeah.
And like right now I'm like 195. So I was like, maybe if I drop 20 and he gains 20.
Yeah.
Like eat, motherfucker, just eat food. Like I have to do the hard work.
But the thing about frauds are, even if everyone knows they're a fraud, they're not going to go and do that. They're not going to fight somebody that's trying to prove they're a fraud, because that would prove they're a fraud. Yeah, eventually you're going to get somebody.
Oh God, I can't wait.
Eventually you're going to get somebody. But for the most part, a fraud doesn't. Yeah, they're not going to let themselves get exposed like that.
Yeah, I think it ruins the cult. Like it ruins their paycheck, because their paycheck is being full of shit. And like I'm very honest about my shit. Like I haven't trained as much as I probably should. Like I know I haven't trained as much as I should.
Yeah.
I don't fucking care as much as I used to, just to be honest. Like
that happens, man. You get older, you got more shit to worry about. When you're young, it's fun. Honestly, like for me, it was weird. I didn't have anxiety about fighting until I lost my first fight. My first couple fights, maybe because wrestling, and I was always like, I grew up wrestling in high school in the tournaments all the time. I was always competing. And it was always fun for me. Even if I lost, like it was like, whatever. Like it wasn't a big deal. But when I lost my first MMA fight, everything changed. That's when the anxiety came in for me.
Because it's possible.
Yeah. Now it's like, wait, I'm not invincible?
Yeah.
Hold on.
So what is your favorite fighting video game of all time? Favorite fighting video game?
It'd be a toss-up, honestly. It's funny when I hear kids say Tekken, I'm like, Tekken? Fuck is that? That's not an old school video game, even though it is now.
Now it is. Yeah.
I'm old as shit. Yeah. But for me, it's probably old school Mortal Kombat and Killer Instinct. Killer Instinct is like, it has a warm spot in my heart, like playing with Fogor and the combo breaker. Like I still remember Killer Instinct for me is probably my favorite.
All right, well let's play. Cool. I got the guys over at Rec Room Masters and Arcade One actually sent this to me.
It's got the McDojoLife logo. That's dope.
Yes, it is. So they sent this to me, and they did all the custom art for me. And the back has every game made from like DOS all the way up. Actually, before DOS.
That's dope.
Yeah, and so
you got the golf thing, huh? I see the golf wheel.
Yeah. So it's got like all the top golfs and shit on there. So funny enough, I bought those two back in the day, and now this makes those obsolete.
Well, you said my favorite game, which is Killer Instinct. I have not played this game in probably 20 years.
I promise you I haven't played this shit either.
All right, good.
Killer Instinct is a fighting game developed by Rare and published by Midway. It was initially released in arcades in 1994, but would later be released on consoles starting in 95. Killer Instinct borrowed quite a bit from other fighting games of that era, but also had some unique qualities that made it stand out from the rest. With double energy bars, automatic combos, and ultra combos, it is a classic of any old school fight game fan.
We were just talking about COVID a second ago, and I don't think a lot of people know this, and you deserve a lot of credit for this shit, but you had me there as a judge for your event here in Jacksonville, and it was the most surreal shit, because it was the very first, if I remember correctly, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the very first MMA event with no audience.
The very first. As ESPN reported too. ESPN definitely picked up the coverage on it and showed us a lot of love.
And I don't think there was any sporting events, period, during that time.
We were it was really cool because I think Mark Rinaldi is his name. I don't know if he's still with ESPN, but we were having a conversation. He goes, hey man, I don't know if you know this. He goes, but you're the only event happening in the world right now. Like, that's fucking insane.
Yeah, COVID was weird as shit.
Yeah.
And like, what I remember the most out of that was, now I'm sure people are kind of used to it. People have seen it because COVID happened. And, after that, we'll talk about what happened. But I remember being there and being in the audience, like, because I was the audience. Mm-hmm. Like, it was me, two other judges, the referee, And then I think maybe you're broadcasting.
Yeah, we were allowed 50 people in the building. That means corners, the coaches. So every time a fight ended, they had to leave, and then the next people had to come in. So it was only 50 people allowed in the building at one time. So yeah, with the judges obviously had to be there. Production team had to be there. Photographers, commissioners, timekeepers, those kind of things.
I mean, maybe there was 10 people in the building.
Yeah, it was
maybe.
Yeah.
And that's like possibly including the fighter.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there, like, I've judged fights before, I don't give a shit. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching, and the first shot landed. And it's just like a jab. It wasn't anything major. And I heard, bow. And I was like, oh shit. And I'm looking at, like, when you're watching a movie and like something funny happens and you're looking around like, am I the only one
laughing?
Like, yeah, like that happened. And I'm looking and I was like, wait, there's no one around me.
Yeah.
The only thing I could see was the table, I think, if I remember correctly, the table of the people who were commentating.
Yep.
The two other judges, and they're through a cage, like on the other side of the cage. And I'm like a kid in a candy store. I'm like, this is the coolest shit ever.
It was so cool.
And then I had that moment of realization where I was like, oh, now you can hear the cornermen clear as day. So then you could tell the fighters could hear the cornermen clear as day.
The commentators clear as day.
Yeah.
They can hear everything.
Everything. And I was like, well, this is going to change things. And it sure as fuck did.
Yeah.
Because you would see guys on the fly switching stances or switching styles or paces or tempos, game plans, mid-fight, because they could hear the other ref or the other cornerman.
Yeah. I'll never forget the shot for me that stood out the most that night. Ramon Taveras, recently in the UFC, he was fighting a kid who was a kickboxer, a Muay Thai guy. And Ramon's infamous for having good boxing. And he landed a left liver kick. And it the noise was like, you would have thought someone got hit with a bat. So loud. And it was a liver shot drop. And the kid, he stayed there for a second and was like, and just folded after it. But the sound of Ramon's kick to that kid's liver, man, I'll never forget that sound. It was so loud. And I know if we had an audience, I wouldn't have appreciated it as much, really, as every fight that night. I appreciated every fight so much that night. It was so different. My bank account did not appreciate it, but yeah, being a part of that moment was really cool to see those fights, man. It's just something different.
Yeah, and I remember being in the back area where the fighters were going from another building to that building, getting geared up, and then going right out. And it was, who was it? Was the fire marshal or
the fire
marshal? And they're just watching like a hawk.
He had a counter.
Yeah, just waiting for something to mess up.
Clicking people out, clicking people in. He'd be like, "Hey, you're getting close," and I'd be like, "Oh man, who's not important here? Get out." Yeah, it was cool, man. It was cool. And then after that, you got a phone call. I think you did. Dana hit you up after that? Dana didn't hit me up. What happened was Tampa. They had a show scheduled for Tampa to do an event in Tampa 2 weeks later, and WrestleMania got canceled because WrestleMania was supposed to be in Tampa, and they were like, "Well, if WrestleMania is getting canceled, they're going to cancel our shit too." And so the state Florida Commission, they were talking to the Florida Commission. The Florida Commission told them, "Hey, just so you know, the city of Jacksonville, the mayor over there used to be the boxing commissioner, which he is, Mayor Lenny, I think. Curry used to be a boxing commissioner."
Really?
Yes, he was on the board of boxing for the boxing commission. And they were like, and they just ran an event, a regional show ran an event here in Jacksonville. So if they can do it, y'all can do it, for sure. And that's how they ended up. They actually moved their event from Tampa to Jacksonville based off of more or less our proving that it could be done. So
because of combat night.
Because of combat night.
I mean, I think that I try to give you as much credit whenever that kind of stuff comes up, because every once in a while it comes up in conversation.
Yeah.
I'm like, y'all got to give some credit to Mitchell.
Yeah.
Because I don't think people truly understand. A lot of people have short memories too.
For sure.
People forget that COVID was even a thing.
I know.
Magically. It's
already.
Y'all understand how bad that sucked ass.
Crazy.
Yeah. And then I think credit should be given to you for at least exposing that, hey, this is possible.
Yeah.
You don't have to stop everything. You just work within the rules, the confines of the rules.
It doesn't. It's such a weird thing because it doesn't bother me so much that we didn't get as much national recognition as maybe we should have, because at the same time I really feel like we wouldn't even be doing what we're doing if it wasn't for the path that the UFC has paved, and they've opened so many doors for us and for my family and for my friends to be able to make a living. And, you know, because I consider all the guys that fight for us family, man. It's like, I love them. And to see what the UFC has done and pioneered, like they opened all these doors for us. And it's like, cool, we opened a fucking door for them. Like, yeah. I feel honored.
I mean, it's fucking cool. Yeah. And like, you've had quite a few guys go to the UFC. How many guys have you had go from your organization directly to the UFC after?
Guys that started with us as amateurs, did all their pro fights, and then to the UFC, we're at like 7 of those guys, like 7 or 8 of those, like literally amateur first fight, pro first fight, last fight before the UFC. Boom, they're there.
And I think 5 of those guys alone off the top of my head all train at like Elevate.
They're in Jacksonville.
Yeah, they're all in Jacksonville.
Elevate MMA, Preston. You got Preston Parsons, you got Steven Costa, you got Ramon Tavares, you got Austin Lane, you got Trey Waters.
All right, brother.
All right. Yo, I appreciate the love, man.
Yeah, thank you for coming through, man. I had a good time.
I'm a little upset you ain't coming to the event this weekend, but it is what it is.
I got other things, unfortunately. I wish I was there. I hope Corey wins this fight. But Corey makes it hard to attend one of your events. Because every time Corey has a fight, he ends it in the first round. And it wasn't even worth me showing up.
It's like an old school Mike Tyson fight.
He could have just showed up. He could have just hit me a text, right? I've actually been like trying to like get Corey, if he like knocks people out, to like pay him a bonus.
Yeah.
So I've been like, I was like, yo, I think I've sent him a bonus before. Like, I think he knocked a dude out, and I was like, I sent him $100.
That's dope, man. That's
why not? Like,
always showing love, man. That's one thing I love about your page is like a lot of these pages, they build a big following and they don't show love to like the lesser pages, right? Or the lesser fighter, or the people they're there for. And like you always show love to the fighters. You always show love to the athletes, the people in the sport that are trying to like change it and improve it and make it better. And it means a lot, man. It really does.
I'm trying. All right. I appreciate you, brother.
All right,
man. I'll see you.